Okay, could we just come back together now? In action research, because of the I in the question, it is sometimes thought that it is not connected to the social formation, to the cultural formation. But it is, because everything that we do, even what I'm doing now, is a social activity. It is with you. Whatever we do is connected to other things that are going on. And I'm just curious now, in terms of that question I asked you, about whether you feel any sense of identity or the valuing, literally, of the country, the sense of a young country which is actually developing and that you can make a contribution to. Whether you feel, as you were talking, any sense of that social identity with the country. Would anybody like just to say what you were talking about in terms of raising the awareness to that level of social activity into the country, into the, we call it social formation? Anybody, as you were talking? Anybody?
For example, I'm proud to our history.
Yeah. It is very important, this, you know, when you frame your action research, to acknowledge your historical understanding, you know, of where, literally, you have come from, and where you hope to go to, belonging to the country. Any others that you feel, yes, there is a history, you know, I have a sense of the history, which I am proud of in relation to my country. Is there anything else that you feel you connect with?
I mean, here is, for example, some historical, not problem, but this country is divided into three parts: Czechia, Moravia, and Silesia. And sometimes people thought I'm Moravian, I'm Czech, or I'm Silesian. And now there is another problem. What is if we are Czech people or Czech inhabitants, or European people and European inhabitants? In comparing with the United States, I think almost nobody says I'm from Nebraska. I'm Nebraskan, but I'm from the USA.
Yeah.
But if we don't say we are from the Europe, we say we are from the Czech Republic, or maybe I'm from Morava, from the Czech Republic, so I'm Moravian living in the Czech Republic. What is maybe some very similar problem?
Yeah, very. You know, so again, that is exactly what I'm saying in action research. It is very important to, we say, frame your inquiry in the historical and cultural position that you're in. So you're at the moment wondering, you know, well, am I Moravian? It is the same in the UK belonging to Europe. The UK has a history which doesn't easily say to someone like, I am a European. If you ask me, I am still British. And yet, I know how important it is for me to start to see myself as a European. So that is one of the reasons I am taking action research into different countries. In Norway, and other, there are 47 countries associated with the Council of Europe. And in one program called the Pestalozzi program, it is the core of Europe's teacher education program, and I'm seeking to build action research into the Council of Europe programs. So this idea of identity, anybody else feels that they have just that contribution to make now which helps us just to frame our inquiries. Like that was a really helpful one about, I see myself, you know, Moravian. How do I actually identify myself in a way that can be shared so that the national identity can strengthen and grow? It's very important to put this into your action research as a framing of your I question. Any other? So because it's funny, this difference between, as you're all, you know, and I can see you're attending, you know, I'm looking at all your faces, but the difference between the animation as you talk together, the excitement and interest, because clearly you were talking about things that, you know, did interest each other. And I'll just make one last check before I show you all the resources that are freely available for you if you want to take these kinds of inquiries and this research into your own lives. But let me just give you one more chance. Is there anything else? That was a really helpful response in terms of that sense of identity. Anything else as you were talking that you feel, yeah, this was important to me?
I think that question of national identity of the Czech Republic, of the Czechs, are quite difficult because if I give an example, for example, the British, you had thousands of years, okay, hundreds of years to develop your national identity, but in fact we have 20 years.
You have?
We have 20 years
Yeah.
to do that.
You have, but that could be an advantage because you think of the British identity as a colonial power. Now, that is something the British have got to keep coming to terms with. Because when I go to South Africa, if I am in what is called a Boer community, like in Bloemfontein, the British invented the concentration camps in the Boer War, and it is still remembered vividly in that community. Their museums have got 84 concentration camps with the deaths of women and children because the British actually imprisoned the women and children to try to control the men. So, whilst we have that, you know, thousands of years history really, it is quite a difficult identity to come to terms with because that colonising influence in the world is very, very strong and historically understood. You are a young country and you've got the chance now to create something grounded in those values that we were just talking about. Where the knowledge creation, that sense of the truth, the health, the free time, the family and friends, and I think that is really vital to get the relationship supported in relation to family and friends. But this is all in the context of generating a new country. As you said, it's only 20 years old and you've all made and can make a contribution. Now, before I go on to show you the resources that are coming literally from all over the world that you have free access to, is there anything else that you feel that you would like me to talk with you in this session? I'll raise this again when I show you the resources because we've got another half hour. Is there anything else that you're feeling, yeah, I'd just like to raise this, you know, before I finish this session? Just think very carefully now because I'll ask you, you know, to make sure that I've actually covered what you actually want to know. So is there anything now that you're feeling you want to raise with me before I show you the resource? Okay? Right, now, what I want to draw your attention to is something that is available to you freely. Now, you access this from what is called actionresearch.net. Now, I'm just wondering about the lights. Can we just try, if we just turn on, thanks. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay, we're nodding at the back. Now, treat this as an electronic portal. I'll just very quickly just click on a few of the things so you can see the kind of things you can access. But some of you here might gradually move on to doctoral inquiries. Now, one of the things I've been doing is to supervise doctoral inquiries. And I've 30 over the last 15 years have successfully completed doctorates with me. Now you look at these kind of questions. How do I come to understand my shared living educational standards of judgment in the life I live with others? How do I contribute to the education of myself and others through improving the quality of living educational space? Now, those of you interested, when you talked about the family and friends in particular. Now, this one from Karen Riding. Now, this was the only husband and wife team that I've ever supervised, and they both graduated 2 years ago. Now, you look at that value. In this account, I explain the shared life that I lead with my husband Simon transforms itself into a loving energy that emerges in our educational practice. This loving way of being emerges as the energy that drives me to transform the social formation of the school to work alongside student researchers in an intergenerational and sustainable way. Now, this is the only PhD, along with her husband Simon, that takes a loving relationship with the energy that can be generated from that and shows how it influences the work with the students in the school in relation to their learning. And this is freely available for you just to download and access. How Karen worked with what she called intergenerational groups of students. She got the students doing action research in their classroom, and then the older students working with the younger students to show them how to do the action research. And she got 3 groups, which she called intergenerational groups of pupils as researchers. Now, I know this will be outside your experience at the moment, because many of you, I believe, haven't had this kind of practice with the pupils in schools. Remember, I come from a country where 26 weeks of a 36-week years program with teachers, student teachers, has to be spent in schools, in practice. Now just think of that, 26 weeks, I think you have 6 weeks. The difference is enormous. But this is where the action researchers are studying their own practice and bringing values that I think you will find a bit alien at the moment. But when you were talking about the friends and the family, you clearly have already got that loving energy. Now, can you make that part of your inquiry? And this is where you can just access theses and accounts that have done that. Very few people understand that energy needs to be shown. So I hope you can feel, coming from my whole body, an energy which actually motivates me in what I do. You know, I really do love what I do in education. I have a passion for it, and I hope that you can feel that, which is coming through my whole body and is communicated into this space. You try and put that energy onto a page of text. You can't just compare how you feel I'm expressing this energy with how Karen expresses it just on this page of text. You know, the word energy, I'm saying just the word on text cannot communicate the actual flow of energy that I'm expressing in the here and now. That's why I often videotape what I'm doing. So the visual, the video, which Karen places into her thesis to communicate the meaning of this loving energy. Just words on text don't carry it. But I was asking Roman and Claire and Suzanne at lunch whether they'd ever videotape themselves. And the response came back, we videotaped other people, but we haven't studied ourselves. Now, this is something I would urge you to do. The technology is there. It's very easy to use. Try and sometimes turn it on yourselves so you can see yourselves as others see you. Otherwise, you will never build up a valid explanation of your influence. Unless you see, you know, just as you've been communicating with me, I've really felt your life and vitality, which if I had a camera, you and I could show back to you Yeah, this is really it's really exciting the way you are communicating. And this is how others are experiencing you. But without the video, it's only pages of text. So that's why I hope you will access some of these resources. We have two laughing... No, in fact, it's our colleagues here that I was talking about over lunch, about that issue, about what the video can show. So I can't overemphasize this enough. You've got the technology in the department. You know, there it is in terms of my own camera. I'll be able to just take a clip out of this presentation. This is only for me. I can put it on YouTube, and I will on Friday. You can access it and just see. Is Jack telling the truth about the kind of energy which he claims is actually flowing through him, with him, into this space? Are you okay with this? Right, that's great. Okay, so that's where you can access some of the theses, but these two in particular I do think are important. You'll just see, I'll just show you one or two others. Excuse me. Look. These were particularly important. This was from Mumbai in India, looking at the children with specific learning difficulties from Swarurawal. Ian Charles, a very important one. I took this over to South Africa because Ubuntu is an African notion which actually talks about I am because we are. Nelson Mandela, there's a 20-minute clip on YouTube of Nelson Mandela talking about the importance of Ubuntu in his life. And it's a way of relating, which in English, we don't have a proper way of translating it, but it's I am because we are. In other words, I can only understand myself in relation and communication with others. It's a relational way of being. And again, that's a very exciting one using video. But the one that I just wanted to show you, which was the very first one that went into this one. Look at this. Love at work. What is my lived experience of love? How may I become an instrument of love's purpose? All right? Now, if you put love into your account, you'll have a problem because it's just often just related to sex. Okay? If you actually use love, then there's often ridicule. In my country, when Eleanor was putting forward her dissertation, our Deputy Prime Minister was having an affair with his secretary, and it was in our papers. So that love at work, okay, it became ridiculed just to mean having sex with your secretary. That was love at work. But Eleanor has a very different understanding of love at work, which is very much related to that sense of the family and friends. But if you start to make these values explicit, you will have to tolerate some difficulty within your culture and social work. You know, I had 20 years issues in my university getting these kinds of doctorates accepted. So I was working from 1973 to about 93 with real opposition. After that, it started to give way, and until now, they're not only accepted, but we get people from all over the world wanting to carry out this kind of research. But if you're just beginning, you know, do expect some kind of tension about bringing these values into your accounts, into your explanations. But this, I want to show you now, that is the resource that you can access. Bernie Sullivan's, that one there, A Living Theory of a Practice of Social Justice, realising the right of travellers' children, which is your equivalent of your gypsies, to educational equality. She's now a head teacher. But I hope that gives you a flavour of what's available from the Living Theory section. Now, I'll just mention this only other one on this left-hand side, just in some detail, but it's this, that I think everybody in this room has got the embodied knowledge to make public. When I say your embodied knowledge, I mean the knowledge that is in the life you are living. This is why I talk about your living educational theories. You can generate, as knowledge creators, your stories of your learning. Now this, in relation to making public your embodied knowledge, is where this section is all of the accounts that the teacher researchers have produced and freely made available as gifts. These are all freely available. You can download them and you can use them in your own accounts in terms of acknowledging where they come from. But just look at just some of the titles that. How have I developed my own personal views and gifts and talents? How does this influence what I do in the classroom? The focus of all these is trying to enhance learning in the classroom. Now I'll just quickly go down to the bottom because I want just to show you this particular one, which is all about children carrying out action research about learning and creating their own learning theory. Now, this is by a teacher called Joy Mountain, and I want just to show you how Joy has integrated the children's accounts into...
No, I just want you to think about the task wheel, think about how we use it, whether it...
Now, you're just going to see it, just a minute or two, of 6-year-olds that are redesigning a model of learning that the president of our National Gifted and Children Association had put forward. Now, these 6-year-olds wrote to this woman called Belle Wallace. She came down to the school and agreed that what these 6-year-olds are saying here actually moved her 2-dimensional model of action research into one that was 3-dimensional and dynamic. Now, these are 6-year-olds. And she agreed that they'd come up with an improvement in relation to her model. And you can access the video, and there are 3 of these videos where they're actually doing
useful.
You can use it in like any topic. It doesn't have to be like a particular subject.
Daniel, I just want you to think about the task wheel, think about how we use it, whether it's useful.
You can use it in like any topic. It doesn't have to be like a particular subject. It can just be in any. So let's say you were stuck on your science and you wanted to know what to do. You could look at this for some ideas about it and put these things here.
So the questions around the outside are useful.
What you want to, because it says some questions that you might think of the answers to, and it will help you.
So you use it to plan your topics. Do you use it any other times?
Yeah. We kind of use it like, say when we say that we need things to ground us, it's mainly we get task wheel and...
So what about if you're stuck?
Well, you just look at what you wanted to do on here, and then you go to here and find it on here, and then you get the questions in your head and try and work out with the things here.
Does it help with your thinking?
Yes, it helps you with your thinking. Because it's actually the questions that you might need to answer, not exactly the answers.
Are you okay with that? That 6-year-old is actually offering a very sophisticated response about the questions. Now, it's this that you can access on the web, YouTube. I've put hundreds of clips onto YouTube, and the teachers are putting their own there like this and integrating them into their narratives, into their stories, their master's units and their doctorates. But these 6-year-olds, you'll see, if you bother to just get into these other ones in the account, what is the use of the task wheel? What do you think of the task wheel? Okay, now, those are where you can see these 6-year-olds redesigning something using the action research. You can get that just from the Master's Educators programs. I just want to make sure you know how to access these. What you do is you click on this one here, Master Educators Writings. You then go down to near the bottom, and you'll see under the Methods of Educational Inquiry, Then you can go up research methods. Do you see these different titles that are available to you? Educational inquiries.